Corey, this Ole Miss offense is incredibly explosive. Might be the biggest challenge you face this year. Your thoughts after your last couple of days?
Yeah, I think, you look at, the quarterback, I think, does an unbelievable job spreading the football around, extending plays, just keeps them on track very well. I think the running back's very talented. I think he gets downhill, he makes the first guy miss, runs between the line of scrimmage really well, but also can get the ball out in the perimeter, and he's a big play at any point. And then I think, the skill on the perimeter is very talented, and there's a lot of different guys that, can take the top off, can make some plays in space, they can get the quick game out there, and I think they do a really good job, and then they go fast. I think they're, top 15 in the country at the speed that they play at, and, that's something that we've seen a little bit earlier in the year from South Florida and SMU and some different teams, but we got to make sure we're ready for that.
Corey, we know how good the pass rush has been all season, but what impressed you most about what they did against Ohio State? Team they gave, 11 sacks going into that game against you guys.
Yeah, I think, our guys did a really good job, really, in the back end pre-snap with some different disguises and doing some different looks and really covering. And I think up front, our guys played very fast. And I thought early in the game, really in the first half, I thought we did a really good job of stopping the run and making it so we could get after the quarterback. Like that third play of the game, I thought our guys did a really good job. And I thought we put them in some situations where they had to throw the football early, and that's really, in the second half, we had to continue to do that. But no, I thought our guys, really as a unit all together played really well, affecting the quarterback.
We've talked so much about Ben don't break that the Stevens had, but when Jeremiah Smith had the big catch and then Ruben gets the sack and Keontae gets the pick six, just what was that like from your perspective watching the response on those two plays?
Yeah, I think that changes the entire game. It's 7-0 at that point. They hit the explosive plays, 59-yard pass, I think. And, it was one of those things where, we got to be a little bit more detailed. We got to do our job on that first down on the P and 10. But, I think they took a shot on second down on that first play, the second play of the drive. And, Ruben gets a sack and then, Key jumps that screen. I think that changes the entire outcome of the game.
I'm sure you've seen I'll call it chaos that they're going through with their coaching staff and especially on the offensive side of the ball. Does that impact you at all as you plan for this game and approach it from a schematic standpoint?
No, we're 100% focused on us. It's the biggest thing was let's clean up Ohio State. Let's correct the communication assignments and some of the technique stuff. And we moved on now. Now it'll be how we think they'll game plan us, how we think they'll attack us. Some of the things that they do a really good job in the run game and pass game, but we're not looking into that at all.
I haven't really talked much about, but Ethan O'Connor, what stood out about what he's done for you guys this season?
Yeah, I think he's consistently gotten better every single week. I think his detail, I think how hard he, and I think it shows in practice. I think he's becoming a better player in practice every day. The way he goes about a routine, the way he starts to attack it, and earlier in the year, I think there might have been some plays in practice. He gets beat on a one-on-one or doesn't finish the play. And I think when you go through the season and how he's progressed, now he's competing, now he's making those plays and it's showing up more and more on film. He made a couple plays, especially like in the 2-minute drill right before the half. There's one time he, break foot, dry foot, runs right through the receiver, makes a really good play out in the flat. There was a couple other times like he takes the top off and discourages them from taking a shot or sets the edge. And I think his game is just getting better and better every single week. And I think it's the way he's been preparing and practicing.
Considering their pace of play, how important is just a rotation, being mindful to the rotation on defense, defensive line, even corners, etc.?
Yeah, I think we play a lot of guys, and I think that helps us in games like this where we're not just 11 players on and off the field. We have rotations in the back end at corner and at safety. We have rotations at linebacker and on the defensive line. I think that'll help to keep us a little bit more fresh in a game like this where they're going to go very fast. And it's one of the games that stood out that I was watching this morning is the Washington State game. It's like play 6 in the drive, and I look at the scoreboard to go back and see the situation, and it's like, I don't know, a minute into the game already. That's it. But they're going really fast, and we have to make sure we keep our guys fresh, we keep our guys on and off the field, and we got to do a good job of eliminating explosives, but trying to keep them behind the sticks so our guys can get us, get the chances to be on and off the field, and we got to handle our rotations. And I think our guys this year, between guys being banged up or different guys practicing or playing in different rotations, I think a lot of them played together with different people. And I think that's where, you've kind of seen a little bit more of a comfort level with, no matter who it is in there at 3 technique or nose guard, no matter who it is in there, it's Wes, it's Chase, it's Popo, it's really a handful of guys that are playing in there at linebacker and Mike or at will with Mo, and in the back end at corner and safety. And I think like Fitz, the way he stepped up, and some of, like Virginia Tech week and some of those weeks with Dylan and different guys stepping up, and Pruitt, doing some different things for us and playing fast and playing physical and being able to handle those situations. I think that has helped us as we've gone into the postseason here.
How much did you learn from the Florida State game when it comes to pace? I mean, that fourth quarter, they were just going down the long drives, but efficient drives. How did you learn about how you guys had to handle that as you guys prepared for this one?
Yeah, I think that was a game we played really well, for about the first 70 plays. And after that, I think we probably leaned on our guys a little bit too much early. And I think that's where, we've played a lot more players since that point, especially up front with our defensive line. And, there were situations in that game where early on we made the plays and it stopped the drive or ended the drive or got them behind. Later in the game, there were situations they went for it a little bit more on 4th down. Just our detail and our technique in some of those situations, we probably could have been off the field. And, we allowed them to get the first down and extend the drive. And I think that wore our guys down a little bit. And I think now we've learned from that. And that's where you see some of the rotations since that point. We've been playing a lot more guys as we continue to go.
Dallas Street football, Bill. From day one to now, what's the biggest growth area you've seen from the unit that fans might not notice on Saturday?
I think it's their communication, and I think it's their belief in playing with each other. I think our guys trust each other right now. I think our guys go out there, and, you can see them communicating just in practice. The way they talk, the way they communicate, the awareness to know, this is the guy that's in the fit with me, or this is the guy that's helping me in coverage, or, I have someone protecting me right now if I hit an inside move or a different thing in a line game. And I think, just that level of trust and confidence in knowing, hey, I can do this in this call and I can't do this in this call, or, and trusting the guy playing next to you has gotten better every single week.
With OJ going down in the middle of the game last game, Jabori got a handful of reps defense. What type of growth have you seen from him throughout this season?
Yeah, he's a guy, and it hasn't been a lot of game reps, but the way that we practice and the way that we compete on the practice field, like, I kind of always look at it as that is your game rep. And that's where, I think I said it in camp, I was like, the ball always finds Fitz. Well, it's no surprise that Fitz has all these picks. There's other guys that Justin Scott continued to get better with his detail, continued to get better, as he practiced every day. And, early in the season, he might not have played a lot of snaps. And now all of a sudden, he's a guy that, plays with very good technique, plays with very good pad level, is explosive off the football. It's the same thing there. Like, last week was his best week of practice. I mean, he made a play on a fade in practice that was a really good play on. I think it was on a double move. And, just his technique, his, how he competes, how he wins the one-on-ones, his awareness of what's going on, different formations and different field zones. It's gotten better every single week, and that's where, OJ all of a sudden, I look down, I see him maybe not going back in the next snap. We don't even blink. It's, next man up, and we know he's prepared, we know he's ready. And, Coach Zach and Coach Will have done a really good job of preparing those guys, and really everyone on the defensive staff. They've done a really good job of preparing those guys as the season's gone on to make sure there's no drop-off.
We're going to switch things over to Zoom now. Carter, if you want to take over.
Yeah, we do have some questions, and we'll start with Brandon Marcello. Brandon, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Congratulations so far, man. From a 30,000 foot view, people casually watching your defense go, Mesidor and Dane, that's where it all starts. But for you, where does things start for that defense? What has made it so successful?
I think it's just the guys, how physical they play and how they swarm to the ball, and then how they communicate. I think the group has continued to grow from April through the summer into August into preseason camp. And, they continue to trust each other. They continue to play fast. They've grown together as a unit. And it's been, Mesidor was a guy in the summer that was a big leader that pulled guys together. It's been, key when he transferred in, his, some of his practice habits and how he's pulled guys together, though, in the locker room, in the meeting room, off the field. just growing closer as a defense. And then, some of the different practice habits, it's Mo's a guy that had played in this style of defense, and, he's a guy that kind of took those habits into preseason camp, and a lot of the guys have bought into that. And, the way our guys practice right now, like Popo made a play the other day, and he made the same exact play in Tuesday's practice. And, it's no surprise that now shows up in a game. And I don't even know what day of the week it is anymore. I'm still, more talking through, every game's on a Saturday, the way we practice. But, I think that's where the guys have continued to get better. And, you watch Bain and how Bain practices every day, how he goes about the process, how he watches film, how he competes, how he does the extra work. And more guys have followed into that. Like Scroggins makes a play against Texas A&M down the stretch, and he's in there every night with Bain. There's no surprise that he makes that play in the game. And I think that's pulled the entire defense off, is just the belief in one another, their confidence, and I think every week their confidence is growing.
Being down there for about 10 months now and seeing just all the famous alumni being on the sideline, and obviously the winning you guys have come along with here, how impressive you've been just by the support and just how much that city kind of comes on fire when things are going so well.
No, I think it's kind of neat, because a lot of places you go, you see the pictures on the wall, you see the alums, you see the articles, you see the old clips. Here, they're always there. I mean, you look down the sideline, Urban's at every game, or, Ray Lewis is at the game. I mean, my first time this year, I'm looking down Notre Dame, I look down the sideline, and I think we gave up a touchdown, and I think Ray Lewis is yelling at me on the sideline. And usually you don't see that at games, but the support from the alums, and just, Jonathan Vilma's preseason, he's in the weight room, I think, every morning. The guys are always around. There's always guys training here. There's always guys in the building. There's always guys helping out. There's always guys giving really good messages to the players. And just the support, from the community, from Miami, from the alums. And I think, having Coach Cristobal, who played here and has a connection, is connected to everyone that has played through this program, goes a long way. Because a lot of places I've been, you don't have that. You don't have that support.
Next, we're going to Manny Navarro. Manny, go ahead.
Hey, Coach Hetherman, congrats on the win. Curious as to who is playing scout team quarterback this week, trying to simulate Trinidad, and just how do you prepare for a quarterback like that? You've obviously faced some guys that are mobile. Obviously, Byron Brown is a good example, and the guys you guys faced at Texas A&M, Marcel Reed, but it seems like he has another gear Trinidad does in terms of the speed and that point guard ability.
Yeah, that's something that, as we've seen mobile quarterbacks this year, we've used different guys. Judd's kind of been the scout team quarterback for most of the season. We've used Luna, has been a guy that's done a really good job for us, giving us some quarterback run elements, some scrambling elements, and we'll mix it around a little bit. But that's one of those things we will mix around the quarterback in different periods to try to get some pass action, to try to get some run action, and then to try to keep our guys on their toes so they don't know when the scramble is going to happen, when the extended play is going to happen, or when it's going to be true quarterback run emphasis. And, we're going to try to mix that around. We'll have different periods as we go. And, some of it will be true 7-on-7. Some of it will be true team periods, but we will mix that into practice this week.
Got time for 2 more ones in. We'll start with Tyler Thomas. Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah, hey Corey, kind of going off that, just what are your initial impressions of Chambliss? It seems like he's one of the hottest quarterbacks right now in the country.
Yeah, I think, the first thing that comes off is he's a winner. I mean, he won at the Division II level. He's been in the postseason. He's been in the national playoffs. He's won at that. And then, I think for him to come into the season, not be the starter, and then win the locker room, win the job, and the way that they didn't really skip, any steps, and right away the offense has just kind of taken off. And I think you can see like the trust from the receivers, the trust from the tight end room, the trust from the backs, and the way he makes things happen, the way he extends plays. And there's multiple plays last week in that game where, it looks like it's going to be 2nd down and off track, or 3rd down, or they're going to be off the field, and all of a sudden he makes the first guy miss, he puts his foot in the ground, and he still has vision down the field, or now he can escape and run, and it keeps popping up in the cut-ups or the game film as we watch it, where he just constantly makes that extra play, and that's something that we have to make sure everything we do in practice this week we're extending the play. Everything's got to be the 2nd level or 3rd level, and we got to push our coverages, and we got to do a great job of containing, collapsing the pocket, and in the run game it's triple option football again. We got to make sure we have someone assigned to every assignment, and guys have to be really detailed in what their assignment football is this week. But no, I think he's a tremendous player. You know, he'll be one of the toughest guys we played this season.
Thank you.
And we'll wrap up with Najee Tobias. Najee, go ahead.
Folks, congratulations on your win against Ohio State. And one thing that I noticed about the game against Ohio State, you guys had absolutely no penalties. May have been one of your most disciplined games of the season. How do you carry that over into the national semifinal against against Ole Miss?
Yeah, I think, you know, that's kind of the culture that coach has created here. It's been, you know, the way we practice every day. You know, we want to be penalty free, you know, from start to finish, pre-snap, post-snap penalties. And then we're going to be aggressive the way that we play on defense. We're going to swarm to the football. We're going to be physical, but, you know, we're going to do it within the whistles. And, you know, and we're constantly pushing our guys, you know, getting a line, being disciplined, being detailed, post-snap, swarming to the football, finishing through the ball, and then right back, getting back to lined up, especially because of the offenses we're seeing this week where they're back on the ball right now trying to see if you're ready or if you're not. And, you know, that's been the emphasis all year, and I think our guys have continued to grow in that area, continued to get better. And I thought that was something, you know, that helped us to stay on track on defense last week as we, you know, we didn't really hurt ourselves at all on this side of the football.